Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, all. My name is Elizabeth Crossnickel, and I'm delighted to be able to host on behalf of John Seacrest the Seattle Angel Meetup today. We're excited that we have Anil Batra as our guest speaker. Anil is well known to Seattle Angel Conference. He's been involved with John Seacrest and our investors and founders for quite a time. So it's an honor to have him actually here as our guest. And we know that you're going to enjoy the conversation that he is actually bringing to the table here. My name is Elizabeth Crossnickel, and I work with John. I work with John in a couple of different areas to help on some programmatic work on our Seattle Angel Conference, as well as our Transatlantic Angel Conference. And Apis Health Angels is my particular interest. So if anyone has a fondness for health, life sciences, then please let me know and we'll get you connected on some of those programs. So you found us perhaps on the meetup, or you found us on a post, or you Anil put out a post that made people aware of this topic. So Anil actually is a wonderful educator. I was telling people that he has taught at a number of universities, and he runs Optiment Analytics and does a variety of workshops for a whole number of people. I'm going to let you do a little bit more introduction on how you got passionate about this. But we have talked to our groups beforehand with regards to analytics. And so you're taking us to the next step. We all have to be prepared for the transition. And what should we keep in mind that this is not a disaster for a migration, and tips that you could offer us. So thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. You guys can hear me okay, right? Okay.
Yes.
So yeah. I've been in the digital analytics, digital marketing space for pretty much 20 plus years now. I've worked for, company that did behavioral targeting, which is now very common. Back at 20 years ago, we kind of pioneered along with DoubleClick at that time. And DoubleClick is the one that was bought by Google. So worked with several startups with, we were doing pretty much similar stuff, collecting the data. And how do we leverage that data for marketing, product development, etc. I've seen 2 or 3 people have said they are ex-Microsofts. I have worked with Microsoft for several years. Recently, I ran data-driven workshops for Microsoft for the past 3 years. So how do you use the data to build the products, test the products out, so A/B testing, etc. How do you leverage all the data that's collected? So that's kind of my background. I've worked with startups. I worked with bigger companies. Started my company back in 2007, which we sold in 2008. That was my first consulting organization that we sold to another agency right before the crash happened in 2008. So that was a good time to actually get out of it. We were the last one to be acquired by them. And since then, I worked for agencies and startups. And now I've started Optizent Academy. And Optizent is a digital analytics. So we focus on analytics part only, not the marketing side of stuff, digital marketing analytics, all about data. And Optizent Academy is where I teach people. That's my passion, teaching. I've been teaching for 17 plus years. University of British Columbia, University of Washington, Bellevue College. I conduct classes there, Digital Analytics Association. So I run corporate workshops. That's how Optizent Academy started. So that's where the guy who was running A/B testing platform at Microsoft, he was one of my past clients. So he asked me to come and work with him to teach this over at Microsoft. So we did that for 3 years. That's Optizent Academy. If you want to learn more about like analytics, all these digital side of things, digital marketing, web, those tools, technologies, I teach that. So I have a membership where people come in and ask questions, and we interact with each other. So it's a place for people to come and learn about the new things happening. Google Analytics 4 is one of the changes that's happening. I know one person mentioned, 2 people actually mentioned that they use Google Analytics. One said UA versus GA4. How many of you use Google Analytics today, or have been using for the past few years? Me, okay. Who hasn't used Google Analytics? Tiny bit, okay. All right. So I'm gonna, because UA is the term, that's Universal Analytics, which is the current version, or current, when I say current, because that's the predominantly that's used in by most of the people. GA4 is the new version, which is Google Analytics 4. It's a brand new product. It's not like an upgrade that has happened. And that's why when I say Google Analytics is dead, that means the current version is dead. And people are having a very hard time switching over or thinking in terms of the new Google Analytics 4. And this is where, if you have been using it for past 4 years or more, then you'll have a very, very hard time switching, because we human beings just have this nature of resisting the change. And that happens. When GA4 came out, everybody was like, GA4 is bad, GA4 is bad. It was actually one of the, there's an SEO consultant here, I heard them. This was one of the top terms trending, GA4 is bad. So we rank #1 on that. Now, if you search for GA4 is bad, our page comes up first, I think, last I checked. So that is where basically I wrote why it's not actually bad, because we're resisting it. There are a lot of changes that are happening, have happened in GA4, which actually is very exciting. To me, old Google Analytics was not very useful. I mean, to an extent it was, but I came from a background where I came from databases background. I've done pretty much I was a developer before that. I did front end, back end coding, databases was my passion. And when I started in digital analytics, we were sending all the log files data into SQL Server database, and then we were processing it to find the insights that marketers can use, and, personalize the experience or do targeted advertising, email marketing, etc. So GA4 is actually going in that direction. And a lot of things that are happening is because now you don't want to look at customer data in isolation. It's not just web. People go on different places. You have data sitting in different places. You want to bring all of that together. And that's how GA4 has evolved. It has evolved from a web-centric tool to more of a customer product-centric tool. So you can bring in offline data, online data, app data, everything together. So that's what I'm going to talk about here. Let me get into my presentation, then I'll go into GA4 as well. I want this to be, I think Elizabeth said this, she mentioned it's a discussion. That's what I want it to be. Discussion. If you guys have played with GA4, how many of you have looked at GA4 or Google Analytics 4? Anybody? No. Okay. So then if you have used Google Analytics, if you are not using Google Analytics, then you should start using a tool that will allow you to see how customers are using your app, your site, your products, your marketing, how is that performing. You should be using, whether it's Google Analytics or any other tool. If Google Analytics is free, so you can use it, right away. You should be using it right away, because it'll give you so much insights on your customer base, on your product. Customers vote. You can do all the surveys that you want. Hypothetically, I want to buy a product, but when time for me comes to actually buy that product, I'll vote by my clicks, right? So that's how, whether I'm buying your product or not. That's what you should be looking at. So GA will give you that information. So let me go into this, and then I'll start answering questions as well as they come up. How do I know if I'm using GA4? Well, you can look at your Google Analytics. If you have been using Google Analytics for past 2 years, you are not using GA4. If you recently started using Google Analytics in, let's say, past 6 months, then you're using GA4. But there is another way to tell that, and I'll show you that. Most likely, if you're asking me that question, that means you are using Universal Analytics, not GA4.
Hi, sir. Hi, Anil, sir.
Yes, hi, Rajan.
Very good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon.
It's my pleasure to meet you personally online. I have read earlier your articles on different websites and portals, but it's my great honor to meet you directly online. Thank you.
Oh,
thank you, sir.
thank you.
Actually, sir, I think if you are using universal account, that is the older version, GA3,
yeah,
it will denote with UA hyphen something like syntax.
Correct.
But if you are using GA4, it will be automatically converting GA hyphen something measurement ID. that will be difference, I think.
Correct. That's, I'll show you the differences. That is one way. Basically, yes, you're right. It's a UA, but you need to know, like, I think people who haven't used it, they don't know how to get to that. So I'll show you all that interface and show you where to see those things when we get
Thank
to
you.
it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So Google Analytics, as you know, is dead, and the new version is coming. As I mentioned before, it's the completely new type of tool, not the existing one. So this is just about me, 20 plus years, engineering MBA from UW. I was on the board of the Digital Analytics Association. I teach classes there now. So I am not on the board anymore because I cannot make profit from them and be on the board. But started a company back there. So this is the places where I've taught programs for years. Optizent, which is the consulting firm I talked about. And here's a map showing where my students are. 153 countries, over 45,000 students have gone through my programs here. So I teach people how to become a digital analyst, as well as this membership where they can come and find their place. They can ask questions. They run. Most of the organizations have, like, one person doing marketing and analytics, and they don't have a place to turn to. And that's what we provide here. Some of the client list here. Okay, so let's talk about what is digital analytics before I even go into these tool landscape. So digital analytics is the measurement, collection, analysis, and reporting of the web data and digital channels. So key words here are the measurement, collection, analysis, and reporting. A lot of people do data collection, they do reporting, sort of they are measuring, but they're not conducting analysis. Analysis is where they are going to find opportunities for improvement. So you have optimizing, and is another keyword here. The whole purpose is, how do I optimize the experience for my customers? How do I optimize their journey? How do I optimize the revenue generation, profit margin, whatever my goals and KPIs are? How do I optimize that by using this data? So that's what digital analytics is. There are several tools that I'm particularly talking about. Google marketing platform tools here. For measurement, you have Google Analytics, which is, Rajan said, GA3. GA3 is not actually an official term, but people are using it because GA4 is the new term. So it's called Universal Analytics and GA4. Collection, Google Tag Manager, that allows you to collect the data in the way that you want. It can extend the functionality. And this is a tool that I always recommend to all of our clients to use, whether GTM or another tool. Adobe has similar stack. Analysis, Google Analytics 4, Data Studio, which allows you to visualize the data, reporting, and BigQuery, which allows you to send Google Analytics data into a database, BigQuery in this case, and bring in other data sources, third-party data sources. Weather has a huge impact, and you have several healthcare startups, and if you're particularly dealing with consumers, their health play a role. CDC information plays a role. Like this virus, that flu is happening. You'll start to see one analysis what we did, and not in BigQuery, but in databases in SQL Server. Even before CDC released their news about, flu is spreading in these areas, we were able to find where the flu is happening because of the way people are buying products. When you see symptoms, you're going to go buy it. And if you're working with like a retailer, Walgreens, Walmart, or whatever sells products, you can see the activity. And that tells us this is what's happening. And that tells us what we need to do next. Should we start marketing? Should we start putting products? So there is a lot you can learn from this third-party data. And BigQuery allows you to put the GA data. You can see on-site activity, bring in third-party data. You can have a comprehensive view. Why is my ad for Tylenol working now than what it was working previously? Because this is what's happening. So you can see all those things. This is just one use case where you can bring in, but there are several other use cases, first-party data as well. Reporting, you have GA and GA4 and Data Studio, and then you have GA, GA4, Data Studio, and BigQuery for understanding what's going on. So think about the definition that I talked about: measurement, collection, analysis, reporting for the purpose of understanding and optimizing. And this is where a tool like Google Optimize comes into play. These tools are free for you to use today. Optimize allows you to conduct A/B tests. Do people like this headline versus that headline, this button or that button? When you see people are coming to your website or app but not doing certain activities, that is the time, or actually even before that, is the time for you to optimize. So learn what's happening and then optimize, test it out. You can even personalize the experience. So if somebody's coming from say Microsoft versus somebody's coming from Google, if you have a product, then you can say, hey, I know you know the network they're coming from. You can personalize a message. That's just one simple example. Again, a lifetime value of a customer, their churn, their propensity to download something, their propensity to buy with a coupon, with a discount, all those things can play a role. You can optimize the whole experience using these tools. Okay, so now that gives you the landscape. Let's talk about Google Analytics. So Google Analytics, what's happening? Universal Analytics, which is the current version of Google Analytics, is going away on June 30th, 2023, less than a year. They will stop collecting the data at that point. So if you are running Google Analytics right now, that means it'll stop working on July 1st. If you do year-over-year analysis, that means you won't have any data left. You'll still have access to your old data, but you won't have anything to compare against. So right now is the time to get onto Google Analytics 4. If you're not using Google Analytics 4, time for you to get on Google Analytics right away. Even if you're using other tools, you'll find tons of information and it's free. So this is the new Google Analytics 4, which will be replacing the current version. So what is Google Analytics 4? Google Analytics 4, let's talk about just Google Analytics, right? You have Google ads running, Facebook ad, email, display, print, you name it. You have various channels, word of mouth. You're sending people to your website. I hope that's the central place where you're sending users to. If you are sending them to a Facebook group or Facebook page or some third-party solution, you are losing out on a lot of insights that you can get from your customers. So send them to a central place. Could be an app, but between downloading an app and before that, you lose them. So send them to a central page that you own. And all this information by users, when they come and they browse, they look at, they click on, they scroll, all that stuff gets converted into these reports, which are in Google Analytics. So you can see what they're doing and which marketing activities are working, which features, which content pieces people are gravitating towards, which one they're not, which one is hidden, all that stuff. Then you have your mobile app, right? You send people to your mobile app as well. Sometimes App Store will just direct them or whatever. If you're doing, they go to mobile apps. In past, what has happened is Google Analytics in Universal Analytics, which is the current version, people, you had to have two separate streams. So people will either go to web and you have the web-centric view, and then you have a mobile-centric view. So you're tracking, people are swiping, people are clicking, whatever they're doing, you had a separate view. So if I'm a user, I go to your website and then I go to mobile app, I'm counted as two separate entities, even though I'm the same person. And people have device switching all the time. You look at something, you come home and you switch to your desktop, and then you walk away, you're back on your mobile. So you might do research on desktop, purchase on mobile, or do research on mobile, purchase on desktop. And that created a fragmented view of users' journey, fragmented view of your marketing. You do not know if it's working or not because you send people, they came via Google Ads to your mobile app, but then they went to desktop, typed your URL and converted. You do not know what's going on. If you put proper pixels, yes, Google can track them, but from the behavioral standpoint, you did not have complete view. GA4 is getting rid of that. So what GA4 is doing is actually right here is your Facebook ad will drive user to website, let's say mobile app, you go view the mobile app. All that activity by that single user is all collected by Google Analytics 4 as one view. So it's the same user. That was missing in the past part. New one allows you to do that. So there is a collective view of that user. which gives you much deeper insights, how people are switching the devices, how people are using it. Do they use mobile app during the day and websites in the night, or, all those things, which gives you deeper information that you can then use to optimize their experience, optimize the messaging, etc. So I don't know if it seems like not people are familiar with Universal Analytics. Yeah, I don't know what this message is. Yeah, I'm not sure how many of you are using UA, Universal Analytics, but I'm gonna tell you some differences, then I'll go show you if you're using Universal Analytics or not. So what's going away is the familiar interface. If you're used to using Google Analytics, the interface is very different now. The views were one of the ways for you to slice your data into buckets. So let's say if you're running an international site with .co, .com, .uk, .in, etc., you could separate them in views. You could also separate views by certain other parameters to look at one central thing. That's going away. Several canned reports, which are predefined reports, are going away. And this is one of the biggest complaints I've seen from people who are used to using Google Analytics. Like, I can't get my reports. That's going away, but there is more analysis. There is an analysis tool now in GA4, which is actually much better in my opinion. But like I said, people are resistant to change. That's what's happening here. Bounce rate is one of the metrics that a lot of people measured. That's going away. However, it's being replaced by something called engagement, which in my opinion is a better metric than bounce rate was. Everybody familiar with bounce rate? Anybody not familiar with bounce rate? You're not familiar. So bounce rate happens is when a user comes to your site and immediately leaves without doing any activity, that is called a bounce. For example, one of the campaigns we were running, it's an $8 million campaign. People are coming to the website. 90% of them left without going any further. So I mean, $7.2 million were just out immediately. That's what bounce rate allows you to measure. It says, how effective is my landing page? How effective is it in driving users further? Because the purpose of a landing page is for users to get information and drive them further to take that action, whether it's fill a form, whether download a white paper, or just click on to get more information. If people are coming and leaving, that's a problem. That immediately tells you there is a mismatch between what you're advertising and what your landing page is about, or landing page experience is bad. So bounce rate was a measure used extensively by advertisers, right? Particularly in paid advertising space, this is used heavily. Now, why is bounce rate a problem? So there are several reasons. I've written blog posts about this for past 12 years. I've written on bounce rate, why it's not the right measure. It's not a right measure because if I am looking for a phone number for Bank of America branch in my neighborhood, I go on Google and I type Bank of America Redmond Ridge phone number. I go to their site, I get the phone number, I'm out. I don't need anything else at that point because I'm a so frequent user. Every page, every screen on your site or app has a purpose. Unless you look at that purpose, bounce rate does not in aggregate make sense. Sure, in a landing page scenario, when you're using for advertising, it might make sense. Now, if I scroll on your page, I read, I scroll back, I read, I go back, I read, I spend 20 minutes looking at your page, but I don't click on anything, I still engaged with your page, right? It tells me there is some problem because you want me to take some action, but at least I got the information, I spent time. That was not counted in bounce rate. I was still counted as a bounce, as a bad. So those are some of the reasons why bounce rate wasn't the exact measure that we need. Google Analytics 4 really, and we were all coming up with our own measures of engagement. Google Analytics 4 now released a measure called engagement. What that does is, if you spend more than 10 seconds on a page, or you click on another page, or you do the desired action. Let's say if I come to your landing page, there is a page download, I downloaded it and I leave. That's a success, but in old one, it was not a success, depending on how you configure the tool. Now, that is considered a success by Google Analytics 4. So engagement rate is coming up. They have also released now, or I heard, I haven't seen it yet, bounce rate back, which is 1 minus the engagement rate. Not the way it was calculated previously. It's actually 1 minus engagement, which is a different way of calculating it. So that's going away. That's the difference. I like the new measures. I didn't like the old one. New one provides you much better insights. So, and then old tracking is going away, which means if you are tracking in the old way, that is going away, and your data will stop it will stop collecting the data. So you need to switch over to the new tracking immediately if you're using Google Analytics. And your old data is going away as well. There is no way for you to transfer the old data into the new interface. So that's why I said it's a new tool. It's not an upgrade. An upgrade, usually all those things will carry, but they don't. It's a totally different tool. It's more product-centric, customer-centric. It allows you to measure mobile apps because that's the usage that's happening, which old was based on web page usage. Now it's more screen events based. We'll cover that. So simpler data model than the previous one. Event parameters you get for deeper insights. So you will see you can pass tons of information and get deeper insights. If somebody clicked a button on your site, you can pass information about the context around that. You can pass context about the user who clicked that button. That's what you want to know. When you're driving, you're in this mode of acquiring customers. You want to know who are these, what made them click that button, which page made them click that button. What else did they look at? Did they download a white paper? Did they look at this page or that page? You can pass those as parameters. You can use user properties to enrich your user data. So you have events, actions people are taking or happening, and then you have users who are doing these things. You have cross-device data. I talked about that. You have built-in debugging tool that allows you to see if everything is being tracked or not, which was not there in the previous version. It's easier to comply with user and local laws to delete data. This is becoming big, particularly in Europe. If your customer base is in France, Italy, Austria, right now, Google Analytics is banned, or actually illegal, is what they're saying. The reason is the GDPR, which there is one about privacy of customers, then also there is a clause about data transfer. So Google Analytics transfers the data over to US, while European countries are saying you can't do that. So that's something Google is fighting for, but they have made some controls in there where if a user comes to you and say, I don't want you to track my data, delete it. You have to comply by those rules. I mean, I think California is the only one where you actually have to do it, and European countries, but it can become a law. So they have basically allow you to do that. You can go in and delete the data. Machine learning to counter cookie deletion and missing data. People are deleting cookies. People are not providing their tracking information. There is missing data. How do you then find out what's happening? Google is using machine learning to fill those gaps, and it's pretty accurate, because there are so many touch points customers have. Even though you're thinking you're not being tracked in some way or the other somewhere, right? So that they use machine learning for that. Store historical data forever with BigQuery integration. So Google Analytics by default, Google Analytics 4 by default has 2-month retention window. So you can only store the data for 2 months. However, you can change it to 14 months by one setting. But if you want forever to have that data, because depending on your life cycle of a customer, you might need 5 years, 6 years, 10 years of data, particularly in healthcare. I don't know how long you want to keep it, but there are other things that healthcare data, what you can keep and can't keep. But you can put it in BigQuery and it'll be there forever. So if you want to look at the trends, if you want to look at user preferences, how they're changing, etc., all that stuff can be available. And BigQuery also allows for data enrichment, as I mentioned, first party and third party data. You can bring all that data in there and augment, not only know, hey, 15 people clicked on this button and 2 people downloaded a white paper, but you can bring in other data about those users to see, hey, people who live in Chicago, people who live and own this much house or this car, this type of car, that's what they're doing, versus people who don't. So there are several ways. I talked about weather data, CDC data, traffic data. You can do that. I mean, Starbucks, I think, uses traffic data to figure out, what to do. Weather data they use extensively to figure out, hey, which email should go out to who. It's hot and it's cold. Let's put a hot mocha ad for this person or send an email to them. So those kind of things you can do with having this data in a database, and you get better insights. So what might be back is, this is what I said, and this is my old screen, but this is back now. Bounce rate is back. I think these two things are still missing: views and ability to filter out, which is part of the views. Okay, so let's talk about GA4. What is Google Analytics 4? So by this time, you can measure every activity in your app or site by using Google Analytics 4. Which advertising is driving, what people are doing, what links they're clicking, what buttons they're clicking, what content they're consuming, what pages they are scrolling on, what white papers downloading, what products they're purchasing, how deep do they go, how many times do they add the product to the cart and remove it. Even if you are selling subscriptions, I mean, all those things you can measure. So there are two entities here: users and events. Users are the actors who do stuff, and events are the things that happen or they do. So a person who interacts with your website or app is a user. This person is described by user properties. So you can have user properties tied to them. You cannot send any personal information, so you do not know. All you know is this cookie or this person. But you can define more user properties to get more information. Is this person in technology space? Is this person in retail space, health space, whatever? You can type of person. Is this a student? Is this an investor? Is this person founder? You can pass that information as a user property. Their location, their propensity to buy, their churn rating, whatever those are, you can describe those users. Many user properties are automatically tracked by GA. It'll give you that information. And you can collect up to 25 additional user properties for deeper understanding. Like I mentioned, some of these: subscriber, is it a free versus a paid version? Which version? Is it an annual subscription, monthly subscription, whatever? You can find that, and then you can slice your data by using these user property. So you can get tons of information about your users. What are free users doing? What are people who pay monthly versus people who annual? You can do churn analysis. This is one of the big things that you can conduct. When we conducted for a subscription business, by just looking at users' behavior, we knew who was going to not renew their subscription. Like, just look at that and say what activities people do before they decide not to renew. Look at their behavior, and you can create a predictive segment that you can reach out to proactively before they cancel it. Maybe give them something free, maybe extend their something, maybe personal touch, whatever it is. So all those things, well, when you have user properties, you can see how you convert these people, or how you generate more revenue, profits. And events are user interactions with the websites or app. Events have parameters, just like you have user properties, events have parameters. Each event can have 25 parameters. So let's say event is somebody signing up for my newsletter. That's your event. That event has properties. Properties can be: which page did they sign on? How many trips did it take for somebody to sign on generally? What fields did they miss when they signed on? What things they did before that? All those stuff can be the parameters that you can use. Many common events are automatically collected to save implementation time. So GA4, this is one big change. In Google Analytics, you have to do everything. Now, some of the events, like scrolling on a page or a screen, is automatically tracked. What they're searching on your website is automatically tracked. Like, not Google searches, but when they are on your site or app, that's automatically tracked. Downloads are automatically tracked. Few other things like I'm missing out, but there are some things that are automatically tracked here. Here are user properties that are collected automatically. So now you understand user properties, events. Here are some of the user properties that are automatically collected for you. Age of a person. This is based on Google's data. Google has tons of data about you, users. They know what age range you fit in. So you can look at this and say, I am trying to target all those people in this age range because that's what you think, but then you might find it's actually not true. Most of the people who are finding you are in a different age range. App Store, app version, you don't have to worry about it. Country they are in, device brand they are using, device category, device model, so these mobile or desktops. First open time, when did they first open your app, gender, again based on Google data, what interests they have, art, entertainment, games, sports, health, etc. Language of their browser, and whether they this is for app, new, first opened with app, established, and operating system version. These are automatically collected for you. You don't have to do anything. That's the level of information you can get right away. Then you have event parameters. I talked about this. This is name value pair. Some parameters are automatically captured, others you define. Automatically captured events. Language, which is a browser language. Page location, that's the page user is in. So if user is scrolling, which page do they scroll on? If they're filling a form, which page they fill the form on, etc. Referrer, where did the user come from? Title of the page, and screen resolution. Why does it say background noise here? You guys hear me okay, right?
Yes, you're nice and clear. I've just noticed that icon, but
Yeah.
we don't have any background noise. You're good.
Okay, and then screen resolution, which tells you are they using app, what devices, and how big is the screen? Because when you're designing an experience, you want to know what are you doing. If people are using bigger monitors, most of your users, you want to make sure your site looks nice and clean on that monitor. If your users are only using mobile devices, you want to make sure that's the experience that you want to provide and focus on. Types of event, there are 4 types of different events types that get collected. We talked about the automatic. There is enhanced measurement. Those are the things that are enabled by default, like scrolls, downloads, YouTube video, on-site search. These are all enhanced measurement. Then there are recommended events for every type. So if you are e-commerce site, there are certain events that are recommended. If you are a lead gen site, there are certain things that are recommended. If you're in gaming, certain events that are recommended by Google. By using those recommended events, you will unleash new reporting, etc. within Google Analytics. So it's continuously enhancing that to based on what the business is about. And then custom, if nothing fits in, you can create your own events. So we try to recommend clients on these 3. If you can find something, and generally everything fits in there. If they can't find it, I've seen where Google does not have add to favorite is there, but remove from favorite. So if you have a favorite list, etc., it's not there. Then we create custom event for those things. So like this is e-commerce tracking, but you can do any sorts of tracking there for those. So automatic events, we talked about this one. Enhanced events, these are page views, scrolls, outbound clicks of somebody's going out and clicking on your Facebook app or Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm going to turn my fan on. It's really hot in here. If you hear the background noise, let me know. Video engagement, which is YouTube videos that are embedded within your site and found downloads. All these things, when you put GA4 code, it gets implemented there. Recommended events are retail, job, education, games, travel. There are several recommended events for those. And then custom events is if nothing fits in, and you use that. So here is everything in one view. Users have properties. Users come to your site or app, and then they interact, and interactions have parameters. That's it. This is the simple model. It's actually very easy to understand once you put in that way. Users and events, they're going to do certain things. So cross-device journey, I've talked about this. Debugging, here is a view of that, and I'll go and show you in the tool itself, but debugging allows you to see every activity that's happening. And I'll try to find an account where I can show you the activity that's happening. And law and user data compliance, we looked at those. Machine and AI to fill the data gaps. If people are deleting cookies, not allowing tracking, Google's AI and machine learning can fill those gaps. And it also finds insights. It tells you, hey, this is what's happening. Your traffic is down, or this page is down. Look at this. Works with or without cookies by using machine learning. Historical data in GA4 can be, I talked about this. Yeah.
And I know you are so knowledgeable about this and you have so much information to share, but don't race past it too quickly because we are very eager to hear. I know there's a question in the chat about how do I actually capture my old data before we get into the shift, and that's probably something you will cover. But
yes. Yeah, I'm rushing through these because I have already covered, but I'm happy to stop because I've already talked about these things.
Yep.
So that's why I want to make sure everybody will walk away with knowing if this seems like a foreign language and say, I can't understand, okay, what you're telling me, I get it. I can go back and come back too. So I didn't see the question, so please interrupt me and I'll make sure I have answered those questions. So I'm going to go look through those while we're going through. So first question I think is from Mo. What's the best way to keep and use the old data? That means from the old Google Analytics, right? The best way is you can extract it using a third-party tool. Right now, there is a tool called Supermetrics. There are other tools as well. Or if you are not, figure out first what data do you need. You can just copy and paste it in Google Sheets or store it in database like BigQuery. That's the best way. Most of the sites and apps will change within 6 months, within a year. Your historical data, only thing that remains is, I think, how your campaigns are performing, how your conversion rate was, how much traffic you got, etc. So those are high-level aggregated data. I don't want you guys to pay for a tool to do that because tool is going to be very expensive. So figure out what you need, and then you can figure out how to store it. I think Google Sheets might work best for you guys.
Rajan has a question that may be related to this. Is it?
Okay. Yeah, where is it? I'm looking through the questions here.
No, he just raised his hand. So do you want to unmute yourself and ask a quick question, Rajan?
Hi, sir. Actually, I have a query. For example, the last date for Google migration is July 1st. Okay, sir. For example, if I migrate my website account from GA3 to GA4 on July 1st, so then what will exactly happen with old data? Is the old data not accessible to me completely? Either it will be accessible using old account. What will be the process?
Yeah, so on July 1st, the old tracking will stop collecting the data. You will have 6 months, you will have access to that data for 6 months using the old account or old property or whatever it's called, right? And going forward, you'll have GA4 access. So that data will go away, your access will go away on December 31st, 2023.
Okay, so after December, I would not able to see my old data, right?
Correct, you won't be.
One more question. For example, if I am using GTM, Google Tag Manager, for my website, all tracking event activity. So should I, during the migration, should I also update the GTM tracker and coding all parts?
Yes, because the old tracking won't work. And it's a new way of tracking. So your old tracking will completely stop working. You have to switch it. And I won't suggest you wait till July 1st. I am saying do it now so that you can have them in parallel. You can get used to the new interface since you're using an old one. And once you're used to interface, just switch it over to this. It's not like Google is going back and changing it. So right now is the time to do it.
So can you please suggest what is the best time to start the migration process? What is the best time?
It was yesterday, but since yesterday is gone, it's today now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like do it immediately. That's the thing. People are already doing it. Some people are still coming to terms with like, hey, how bad this is. But I think it's once they start to look at it deeper, it's actually much better. Now I'll show you the interface. Because it seems like I should have, given the audience, seems like many of you haven't even seen Universal Analytics, but some of you have. So maybe this seems like, okay, I'm talking gibberish here. So maybe I'll go back, show you the interface, then recap these things so you can see the difference. But let me answer.
Great.
Yeah.
And Nick offered, Anil, if you wanted to do a live demo, he'd be happy to volunteer. So I don't know if that means that that's something useful you can show on the previous data before you move to the new one, but you probably have some examples yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to show that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So we'll have the users, our actors give you a picture. Yes. Are doing events have attributes. Yes. So yeah, Nick, I've got it. If you have something more, we can definitely look at it, but I've got a few examples I can share.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think, okay, so let me actually, why don't I switch over and show you Universal Analytics so that it puts in context. Then I'll go to GA4. Okay. So let's do here. My screen and share. Stop share and share screen. Okay, so I'm going to show you Universal Analytics first. This is the current version. So the way it is, somebody asked me, how do I know if I'm running this? Let's go to admin panel of Google Analytics. That's where you can see the difference. As Rajan was mentioning, all these are, when you look at these, the old ones are by UA. So you'll see that that's the old version. Also, you'll notice in this interface, this changes. You have a Google Analytics. This is your account. That means person who owns it. Within the account, you have several properties. These are based on your site. So I might have a property for my app. I might have a property for my UK site. I might have a property for my US site, etc. So properties are tied to a site. And then you have views within those. Views is a filtered way of looking at something. Even with like US, maybe I want to filter out my internal traffic. I don't want people who are working on the business to be counted in that traffic. Or maybe I want to filter out certain other things. So views allow you to filter the data. So does that make sense, right? So you have the properties here. Now, when you switch it over to Google Analytics 4, as you can see right here, merchandise store, view is gone. That's the difference I was talking about. There are no views. There is no way for you to filter out and just look at that stuff only. Okay, so that's one of the ways you can figure out. However, you'll also notice there is no UA or anything before. It's just a plain number that tells you it's a Google Analytics 4. This name is given. This is a name. So even if there is no GA4, you'll know that this is a Google Analytics 4 property because it doesn't have UA or anything. And Universal Analytics properties have UA in them. So we'll start with Universal Analytics. This is the old Google Analytics. Here is, let me go to the home here. Here you will notice that you have lots of reports that are already defined for you. And they're divided into four major buckets here: audience, which is your users; acquisition, how you're acquiring them; and behavior, what they are doing; and conversion, how they're converting. So conversion can be e-commerce conversion, could be your goals, other goals like white paper downloads, sign up for a newsletter, sign up for a subscription, whatever you want to do that. That's your conversion. Behavior is all about their activity on the site. Site content they're looking at, how your site is performing, the speed. Speed plays a big role in how people convert to your site. People do not make conscious decisions. They make decisions by subconsciously. They're looking at this. You know, when you walk into Fred Meyer, QFC, or whatever grocery store is, they'll label stuff like 10 for $10. Even though you can buy one for $1, you end up purchasing 10. That's just our default behavior. Let's just put 10 because it's 10 for 10, right? And you came for one, but you bought it. That's what they're playing with your mind there. That same thing happens with page speed. If page loads slower, immediately users like, I'm out. I don't have time for this thing. So there was an experiment done by Microsoft. People who are at Microsoft might be aware, might not be. By find 1 millisecond difference in page load on Bing contributed to, I think, $8 million or something like that, or some 1 million. It was huge impact. It's an HBR study that you can see. Go see that. But that is the impact that users have. I mean, 1 pixel difference in wordings in the lines that can make a difference. So that's how you can find out all the behavior, what's happening. And then you have site search, which is on-site search, how people are using your products, not when they're searching on Google, but when they come to your site, so you can see their usage. I don't know if they track those keywords or not. Yeah, I can show you another one, but you can see actual search words that are happening on those. And then events are the things that they're doing. And you can track pretty much anything, like they track contact us page as an event, and they have e-commerce events that are being tracked. So you can see like how people are going through. Okay, so that's about Universal Analytics. You can see the goals, customer acquisition, you have audience information, demographics, overview of these. You can see age, gender of those users. You can see their interest. Okay, as you'll notice here, you have several reports, predefined reports. Now, when you switch it over to Google Analytics 4, which is this one, now the number of reports that are available are very limited. So you have acquisition, engagement, and monetization. So one, the context has switched. It's all about customer life cycle now. So how are you acquiring them? Are they, when they are on your site or app, are they engaging? And are you making money from them? And then retention. So kind of aligns, but it's just a way of, that subconsciously how you're thinking, it's different, but you can find similar information in both of those. And then when you look at the reports, there are not that many reports available here. And this is what people are complaining about. Like, I don't see this, I don't have this report, I don't have that report. It's changed. But there is a feature in Google Analytics 4 that allows you to dig deeper into your data. And that is called Explore.
Mitchell, I know you have a question, but we're going to let Anil finish this part because it might help answer your question. But
I think it might. But he's heading where I would have asked the question.
Yeah,
so
yes.
Okay. So this is an Explore section where you can explore your data, and this is very, very powerful. And this is what people hate because they're not used to this. When you are used to having a cooked meal, you don't want to experiment with, okay, if I put these spices or that spices. Here you have to figure out what you need and then create it. So old one had predefined reports. This one, you have to build what you want and explore. It's more for analysis. In my opinion, you can have built-in reports that will be available in Google Data Studio. You can connect all this data in Google Data Studio and rebuild your reports. But here, let's say if I want to look at a particular event, let's say I want to look at, actually, let's start with e-commerce. Let's say I want to look at item IDs and item names, and I'll pick those from my, let me back up a bit. All the data in whatever format is categorized in dimensions and metrics. Dimensions are which categorize your data. Metrics are the actual numbers. So how you want to view, that's dimensions. What you want to view, what numbers, that's metrics. So we're picking dimensions. I'm calling item ID and item name. I want to see which item IDs and what item names are being sold. This is Google's demo data, so I don't know what information they'll actually be able to provide me. Let's take a look. E-commerce, and I want purchases. Yeah, let's do that.
And a quick question, can you show the site that we're analyzing here? I just don't really have an idea of what the site
is. It's a Google merchandise store. Google, let me just see. Google merchandise. Yeah. This is the one.
Okay, thank you.
So this is where you buy Google products. They are making the data available. Why? Okay, I know I don't have permission, but I don't want to see those permissions.
There you one more doubt. Just a couple minutes before, you have explained bounce rate very well.
Yes.
In the similar pattern, how we can define the engagement rate? What?
Yeah, I'll show. But this is the site. You should be able to. I think I have a plugin that's preventing it. If you go to shop.googlemerchandisestore.com, you'll see it. I'll put this in the chat here.
Thank you very much. That helps.
Yeah. Yeah, there is an overlay that I do with a plugin, Chrome plugin, that's preventing it from doing because I don't have permissions to see that data. If not, I can switch it to one of my sites, other sites to show that if something doesn't work. So now I've got the dimension and metrics that I need. So I'm going to put this dimension, let's say in rows, and then I'm going to do this in values. And this will start to construct that report for me. So I can see which item ID, and let's say I'm also going to put item name. So I can see which item name, how many purchases are happening for that item. Now, this is where it allows me to explore because I can go drop other stuff. I can create a filter. Let's say if I want to only look at where it's a pen, so I can go in and drop filter here if it allows. Well, in this case, it's still GA4 is still in development. Some of the dimension, it doesn't allow you to do certain things. But this is where the exploration comes into play. You can also have, when you go in, you can view the data in different charts. Some of those charts might apply, some of those won't. So you can see all those activities right here. So it allows you to go deeper rather than just having standard reports. It allows you to explore the data to see what's happening. This part is difficult for people to understand because they're not used to this. They're not used to exploring. But people who can figure it out, they have figured it. I mean, they find it useful. You can also add a segment. So let's say if I want to only look at certain things, I can create a segment, recent user activity, non-purchasers, purchasers. You can create session segments, like somebody coming from a particular campaign, you can do that. I'm not going to go through the whole process of creating it, but there is a segmentation that you can build on top of that. So this is the feature that you should be exploring more. The name says explore, but let's go here and come on. So real time, I'm going to go through these reports to show you. So real time, this is what's happening in real time right now on that site. How many users, new users, sorry, that was a report snapshot. Real time, how many users are happening here, what events they are doing. So you can see those events. Clicking on an event will show you the details about that event. Let's it's not working here. Let me pick another one. Maybe something is preventing it. I am going to pick. Let's see if I have any activity here. Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, so if I go here, now you can see within those, I can see the event parameters. So for any event, I can drill deeper and say, hey, this is first visit. Let me take a look. There are 13 people, which are, this is their first visit. There are no parameters here showing up. Let me see, course and funnel view. There are 4 people who are looking at course and funnels, and what's their GA session ID. I can drill down and look at a particular session. And let's take a look, page referrer. There are 2 pages they came from. They came from this page, and they came from Coaching Week. After subscribing from Coaching Week, they are on there. So that you can drill deeper to see what's happening in real time. Also, you can look at this data. There is a debugger I mentioned here, configure, and you can go and debug, and you can see in real time all the activities that's happening on your site right now. So I can see there are 12 people using Apple devices. Actually, yeah, well, many are using Apple devices, Google device, Microsoft, and OnePlus, whatever that is. And I can see their activity right here. So if you scroll down, you can see their activity. You can see their properties, if they have any properties here. So this is a way for us to debug in real time. If you're running a big campaign, let's say you just launched an email campaign, you just enabled Google ads or Facebook ads, you want to see in real time, is this working on? You can come here. You can also debug everything. Okay, there was a question, I think, about engagement, right?
Yes, yes.
So engagement, this is what's happening in engagement. And the site that I'm using here is this one. It's a plug for my site. So if you guys want to join, here it is. You'll learn a lot more than what I'm covering here. But let's say if you land on this page and you scroll down and you look at a bunch of stuff here, right? At that point, you read everything, you're reading, you're looking at everything here, and then you decide, okay, you know what? I have a meeting, I need to go. You leave. At that point, this will be counted as a bounce in old UA. However, the fact that you spend 10 seconds or more on this page, in the new Google Analytics, it'll be not counted as a bounce, it'll be counted as an engaged visit. Because you engaged with the content, you scrolled, you spent 10 seconds. So that's why, and that is what we want people to do. Old way will say, it doesn't matter what you did, whether you spent 20 minutes reading it, since you did not click on any other page, it's a bounce. Does it make sense?
Yes.
For example, earlier we told that for a website, if bounce rate bit more than 80%, okay, so the site is not good. There is a problem with UI UX. Then what with the parameter with same parameter with the engagement rate? What is the best engagement rate?
I don't know if 80% is a good or bad. That depends on site. Similarly for engagement. Generally, you want to set your baseline based on your own data. There's no industry standard. People can say, yes, 80% is bad, but I said, if it's paid, right? There could be several reasons for it. Might not be your page is bad. It might be your advertising is false advertising. It's not giving the right information, right? I saw one example, and it was actually, there was no free trial. Somebody sent and was running an ad, and it kept running because nobody changed it, nobody looked at it. Free trial. They had gotten rid of that free trial. There was no free trial happening anymore, so there was nothing on the page. Page wasn't wrong. It was the ad that was wrong. Targeting could be off. You're targeting wrong audience. And if the page is wrong, generally what I look at is if the page bounce rate is more than 30%, time to look at all these things. I won't say page is bad in that scenario. Engagement, I don't know what the number is, but I think you should get 75% at least in engagement or more. If you're not getting, if you're not getting 75%, something is wrong. So set your own baseline. There is no standard baseline there. That's why you need to look at historical data. Hey, we've been getting 75% engagement. Why is it 60% now? Those kind of things. Yeah, there was a question.
Mitchell's been very patiently waiting for us to come back to him. Did your question get answered?
No, I want to ask it. Okay.
Sure, go for it.
As I hear you describe what the analytics, the potential of the analytics, our content will have, I understand how I could track individual content, but let me give you an example. If I was doing analytics on a mortgage, mortgage has multiple stakeholders that have different value to the content. The insurance company, the bank, the servicer, the asset managers that have bought it in a securitization. Is there a way to link the interaction with the stakeholders that are linked to a particular content?
Yeah, so you want to create a snapshot of the stuff that matters to them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I would give you a picture of, think of a waterfall, and all of the stakeholders have a different interest wherever they're at in the waterfall.
Correct.
And I want to know who's hitting that waterfall where. I want to do my analytics in that kind of a dynamic sense, linked to a specific content.
Correct. So you can do that. Well, the way to do it is you categorize your content with several parameters. Who does it talk? And then once you have those parameters ready, you come into this explore section and you create an exploration for that particular. So I can go in and then say event here. So there is actually a lengthier process. Either you can have event name, but let me go through that because since you asked me, configure. And in configure, you go to custom definitions. And in custom definitions, you can create a definition or a dimension for each of the properties. So let's say you have content, and that content caters to insurance agents and maybe, I don't know, I'm making it up.
I know. I'm with you.
Yeah,
I think you're affirming what I want to hear.
Okay. So yeah, so you basically categorize them that way, and then once you come here, you create a dimension called insurance agent dimension. And I'll have to understand if I'm off, I'll have to understand the complete requirements here. Then you pick the parameter that you have just passed over to the event. So let's say in this case, maybe it's a search term that you have used, something like that. Once you create it, this dimension will start to show up, and then you can create an explore based on this. So you can drag and drop insurance agent, and you can see the data for insurance agent.
Okay.
Yeah. If something is not clear, we can take it offline, and I can look at your site. And yeah,
I'm
happy to do
I'm
that.
pretty sure I'll be calling you.
All right. Yeah. So I mean, this is where it opens up the possibilities, because you can slice it by several ways. If you're a blog writer, which categories of blog people are reading, which author, who's the audience who's reading it. Like I said, our investors, if you categorize them properly, what content are investors interested in versus what content your users are interested in, what content are people who are on free plan interested in compared to what plan people are who are on annual plan interested in, what are our vendors interested in versus our customers interested in. So there are so many the ways you can think of slicing the data. And this is where I think one of the biggest problem that I'm seeing with a lot of GA4 complainers is they were so comfortable using like standard things. It was easy for them to implement. This requires thinking. What do I want to track? But once you understand what you want to track, you can slice and dice the data, and then you have complete. Not only that, you can actually create segments within those to target via Google Ads.
Okay.
So you can push it to Google Ads and say, I just want to target people like this. You can create those segments here as well. So there is a lot that can be done. You can spend a lot of time looking at it, but I hope I answered your question here.
No, it was great. Thank you.
Cool. All right. So more are the dimension tracked by Google, or do we need to define them like we do using? Mine says it's which dimension. So great question. Some dimensions are tracked, like I said, by Google, and some of them you have to enable what's called Google Signals. So Google Signals, let me go here, and there are a lot of little things. I mean, I'm going through whatever I can here. In this reporting, I think in reporting identity, blended, I think, not here. There is a setting in here, data collection, device collection, granular location and device collection, advanced setting to allow for ad personalization. So you have to turn these things, user data collection. That's what you have to do to start collecting some of the data. So this allows the devices, 306 of all these countries are allowed for location and device data collection. So you can turn them on and off. So let's say if they say, hey, you can't do that in Austria, then you have to turn it off here. Google will do some of that for you. But this is where you have to make sure all your settings are enabled before you can see that data. So there are a lot of hidden settings here. And I'm still, even though we keep using it and I have ebooks written on this, but since they keep changing and I switch my context from one tool to another, I sometimes have, okay, where was that? But this is where all your settings are. So if you go in the admin panel, under the property, you will be able to see a lot of settings. And yet this is the one, Google Signal, that allows you to get demographic data. So if you click here, new cross-device capabilities, more insight using Google data, etc. If you click continue, then these things will be activated and that'll give you all the data that Google has about your users will be available, and you will be able to do the cross device. I'm not going to set it up at this point, but that's what you have to do. I think one of my accounts, I have already set it up. Once you do that, then you'll start to see the demographic data, device data, etc. So it's not like by default, certain things you have to enable because that requires your privacy policies to be correct. So you have to make sure it's disclosed, saying, hey, we collect this data, we're using Google Analytics, etc. Because nowadays, even though consumers don't care about privacy policies or don't think about it, the lawyers do. They'll just find a loophole to sue. Okay, that's okay. Anything else I missed? Any question I missed?
I think that was the questions in the chat at this moment.
Okay, so does this make sense now, given what we have talked about? So here, the differences, I try to make those differences in GA4 and GA. I am happy to go into other things to show you the reports here. Let me just go through quickly the report so you can see what's available. So you have acquisition. In acquisition overview, you will be able to see how you're acquiring your customers. So which channels they are coming from, what countries they're coming from, etc. So you, oh, come on, I'm flipping this. And then you have user acquisition, first user. So this is for users who are the default channels. So the default channel grouping is, this is something GA does automatically based on where user is coming from. So whether it's organic search, whether it's direct, social, etc. Then you have all the sessions where they are coming from. You can customize these charts, etc. also if you want. You can click here and you can customize your view. Let's say you don't like the line chart, you want to change it to another chart, and I say I want to see a scatter chart instead. I can go and apply it and it will become a scatter chart. Or you can get rid of the chart if you want as well. So there are certain things that you can customize in your view. There are also discard. And in engagement, you can see your events, all the events that are happening. So you can see all those event button clicks, video start, video progress, people watching courses. I track my course view and funnel views as my events, then drilling into those. Will give me more details about those course and funnel views, how many times this happened, which countries, and all the parameter values. If there are, I can check those things as well. So entrances where people are coming from. Then you have conversions. Conversions are certain specific goals, objectives that you want to achieve. I want to generate leads in this example. So it tells me how many leads I generated. So I can look at those as well in the conversion. So in your case, it might be revenue. It might be multiple things that you want to track. Then you can look at also pages and screens people are looking at. There are a lot of little things that you can do, like, comparisons. You click on this plus, you can find other stuff. There are a bunch of other stuff, but overall, I want to make sure you get the idea of what's happening here. So, e-commerce report in GA4 not showing revenue. Here's the reason. So that's one of the things that people are looking at. So all the content that we have on our site, what are people looking at, and how many views, how many users, how many users per view, etc. How many people are scrolling. So you can see that, event counts, revenue, everything. So in this case, there is no revenue being tracked, so you won't see anything in e-commerce purchases, but I showed you, I think, in that other account. So if I go here and we do the demo site, and you can see the revenue that we demo account. For Google merchandise, you should be able to see revenue here. So you can see the revenue being generated for each item, how much are those sold. You can see items, add to carts, cart to view rate. So here you can see, if add to carts are not working, the percentages are off, then you can definitely, you have a problem in your shopping cart process. And when I say shopping cart, it could be like even in the subscription business, we do that similar stuff. People looked at your subscription, did they click on buy, enroll now, and then did they purchase it? So maybe it's a 3-step conversion. We have a wait list on our site. Is wait list sign up a conversion? You can track it as a conversion if you would like, but definitely as an event. How many people are signing up for the wait list? And that should definitely be tracked as an event. And it's very easy to flip an event to a conversion in Google Analytics 4 here. So if you go and look at configure, here are all the events, and they're all marked as conversions. Oh, I don't have access to this account. I have to flip back to my account. Yeah, let's use this one. Maybe let's use this one. I have different views of different stuff that I'm doing. So here, once you see that, you can quickly, let's say you have an event that's called waitlist. In my case, maybe it's video complete is an event. Or funnel view is an event. I can just take it, mark it as a conversion. Now it becomes a conversion. That's all you have to do.
Hi, sir. I have a query regarding cookies policy.
Yeah.
As you know, different tools are available in market for cookies policy, like OneTrust and different tools.
Correct.
For example, every month, for example, on my website, 4,000 person are visiting.
Yes.
For example, if 60% users reject the cookies policy, then
correct.
So right now Google Universal account only track 40% of those users who are accepting our cookies. So let me know. So then in new account, what kind of improvement we will see if in case user is not accepting cookies?
Yeah. So if user is not accepting cookies, by default, if you're enabling one of the consent managers, this one trust or whatever consent.
Yeah, different kind of tool market.
Yeah. Most of the Google Analytics implementations that I've seen is they totally ignore what the consent is. And that's a very wrong thing to do, because there is not something that automatically turn on unless you integrate them. So what improvement you'll see in this one, if the cookies are rejected, there are several ways to handle stuff. Right? You can outrightly say, I'm not tracking this user. That's one. Other way, you can say, I'm going to put a temporary cookie that's only lasts for the session. So it's only tracking session activity. After the session is done, you don't track that user. So that's the whole purpose, right? You don't track me during my visits, how many times I come, but activity is tracked. The third way is you can not drop a cookie, but you do browser fingerprinting, and Google uses machine learning to fill that gap. So browser fingerprinting is actually very, very effective, around 80 to 90% accurate last I heard, or maybe more, because each person's browser is very unique. It's almost like a fingerprint. And that's what Google, I do not know the exact mechanism of how it's doing, but they keep saying it's machine learning and AI. That's what it's doing. Machine learning and AI cannot generate something. It knows what to look for, what activities to look for to fill that gap. So even if a person rejects a cookie, they'll fill that gap.
Thank you.
So you should be able to see that improvement. Okay, we answered that. So Nick, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm not sure if our waitlist is tracked as an event, but you explained how to go into the configurations and then toggle it to a conversion. And I think the conversion means that there's a view to show the funnel conversion. Is that what
conversion basically shows up as a conversion in reports. So you can also have numbers attached to it, like the revenue numbers or something. So that's what the conversions are. It's the end activity. And you can do that with any.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So like here, I just converted this one into, it'll start to show up in the conversion events, and then you'll see the percentage change, value change, etc. So you can pass in the value.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the list of events on our page, and I don't know how we've labeled it. So I guess we built our site with Webflow and tagged in Google Analytics through that. So I guess I'll have to go figure out how to label our waitlist sign up as an event.
Yeah, so there are two ways. Yeah, two ways that generally that happens. Waitlist, if there is a thank you page, like after you sign up, there is a thank you page, you can track that thank you page. Assuming people cannot get to it directly, they'll always have to sign up for the waitlist to get there. That's the easiest of all to do. If that's not possible, people can bookmark thank you page, they can come back to that thank you page, and you don't want to muddy your data, then you will track that event on the click of that button. And it's easily done when you have Google Tag Manager enabled. Google Tag Manager, that is a whole new session I can do. Google Tag Manager allows you to listen to every activity that's happening in your browser or app. You know, it's based on the DOM activity, etc. And so it can track a bunch of that stuff.
Well, if we have time and there aren't questions, I'd love, maybe I can pop up my site and you can show me some things that I'm doing wrong or how to do this better. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah.
So before we jump into that one, that sounds like a great, very practical thing, Nick. And I love the fact that we've got this opportunity with Anil. What I want to do is, you know, if you really had not been exposed to Google Analytics beforehand, this is probably drinking from a fire hose, right? If you, but I just wanted to remind people that you actually have a couple of ways to come back and watch this again on our YouTube channel, which is going to be up shortly after we finish the recording today. The second thing you can do is you can connect with Anil, and you can actually also attend some of the workshops that he is actually offering. I'm going to make sure that if there's any generic questions first about how someone might use this, that we give people a chance to do that. And then I'll turn it back to you, Nick, and you can drill down into something. But I just want to make sure that if people have some more upper level questions, that they have a chance to answer them and they know where to go for additional information.
Yeah, and I'm going to go through this. Nick, if we don't have time, you and I can connect later.
Oh, what a kind offer.
Yeah. Yeah. Or anybody who has a question can connect with me. I'm always, you know, I've been teaching for 17 years. I love teaching and showing people. So we'll connect. Don't worry about it. So let's take a look at those reports. Again, I'm going to go through all these reports, make sure everybody understands what those are. And then you have these retention metrics that shows you how good you are in retaining those users. You can see all those users, you know, new versus returning, user retention by cohort. So cohort, when did you acquire them, etc. So you can see all those. And then demographic, as I mentioned, I think in this one, Google Signal is not enabled in this account. Let me see, maybe there is some things. Countries are by default. So you'll see interest and age are not and gender is not, because those come from Google Signals. Google Signal is the setting that I showed you. When you enable it, Google starts to collect the data about your users, and it'll start to show you that in this report. And so it's very similar to what I showed in Universal Analytics. I was going to pick another account, but let's do it. So you can see the technology they are using as well, what devices they are using, etc. So you can see here, web, Chrome. Certain things are not tracked because you need for that some things that are enabled in the Google Signals again. Okay, so that's customer life cycle. So you have acquisition, engagement, monetization, retention, and then you have user properties. There is a lot that can happen in Explore. If you were to focus on GA4, if you haven't used GA4, forget about what I said about Universal Analytics because you don't know it exists. Create a new account. Just to create a new account, simply go into google.com/analytics. It'll put you in this interface where you will get slow for some reason. Okay. Well, I'm not sure why this is not popping up. Anyway, you can go to data streams here. and it'll give you a code that looks like, I don't know if Google is having a meltdown or it's my network. If it was my network, then you guys won't be able to hear me. So maybe Google is having some issues, but it gives you a piece of JavaScript code that you need to put on your website. And as Nick was mentioning, and here is where you can get the codes right here. Click here, and this is the code that goes in. However, I suggest before you do that, use Google Tag Manager. Are you guys familiar with Tag Manager? What a Tag Manager does? No.
Yes, yes.
Okay. A lot of people are not, right? Who's not?
I think a brief explanation would be great, but I've also captured it to invite you back to do a more detailed one.
Okay. So Google Tag Manager is a JavaScript code. It's similar to this. You just put that JavaScript code, but Tag Manager itself is a place where you can manage all the tags, pixels, etc. Right now in Facebook, when you're doing Facebook advertising, you might have to put certain piece of code. If you're using Google Analytics, you have to put certain piece of code on your website. If you're using Google Ads, you have to put certain piece of code on your website. If you want to do heat mapping on your site, see where people are clicking for, maybe you're using a Hotjar, you have to put a certain piece of code. Marketers have to put a lot of JavaScripts on their sites. It becomes a nightmare to manage those because many of those could actually bring your site or app down. I've seen those where you put a JavaScript and there is some issue with that third-party JavaScript. And now also that JavaScript can read anything on your page and transfer, and I can show you the information that gets passed. So in order to minimize that risk or impact, Tag Manager allows you to have a central place where you can manage all these things. So all you do is just put Tag Manager script on your site and then manage everything within Tag Manager interface. What that allows you to do is one, centrally manage it. Second, you don't have to be dependent on developers to put those pieces or remove those pieces every time, do a full code release and everything. You don't have to go through that process. It's just sitting in one central place. And that, I'm just going to do a quick overview. So I'm not going to go into details here. You guys can still see my screen, but Tag Manager is being loaded, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's pick this one. So here you have the various types of tags that you can configure. I've configured a lot of them. Some of them I paused because I keep testing them on my live site here. So like add to cart, purchase, button click, ad blocker. So I can see how many people are blocking ads on my site. This is a lead gen app. I have a web WordPress part of it, the site tool. So there is a I think it's some kind of form, CF7. I don't know what it's called. There is a form plugin that I use. How many people are printing my pages? Vimeo video, that's a block. I show a message to my users when they block ad. How many people are copying my text? I'm storing some information in local storage in my users browser, bypassing cookies. I'm taking query parameters and converting into cookies so that I can do for on-site targeting, data layers, drift chat. So you can see a bunch of tags. I don't have to put all these codes on my site. I can just manage everything here. Hotjar, Heap Analytics, MailChimp, Microsoft Clarity, which is a heat mapping tool by Microsoft, Optimize Tag, again, Oribi, PVIC Pro, which is another. This is another tool. I'm actually creating classes on this one. Very much similar to Google Analytics for the European market and for those who are concerned about GDPR. This is a tool, very much like Universal Analytics, not GA4. So you can see a bunch of tags I've created. This you can do lots of things there and fire them as needed. You can create rules. When do you want? If you want to pop up a message, certain message for certain users, you don't have to code that within your code. You can just use Tag Manager to pop it if it's a temporary ad message. So those are the kind of things that you can do in Tag Manager. That's why use a Tag Manager so that you can manage it easily. It's in one central place. If Google changes something, you don't have to go change your code. So that's what it allows. This is the code that you need to pass. If you're not using that, then here is a code that will go on your site, Google Tag Manager code. Once it's there, then everything is passed. So if I see here is a page view, GA4 page view, GA4 base tag. That's all I have to do. Debugging, and that goes in here, the ID of that Google Analytics account that goes here. This one goes in my tag manager. Again, I'm not going to go through details. There is a lot. I don't want to overwhelm you. I've already overwhelmed you, I think. Okay. So first step, if you're not using Google Analytics, go use it today. Go to Google Analytics, google.com/analytics, get the code, sign up for Tag Manager, put it on Tag Manager. If you want to know how to do it, I have a mini workshop as well that if you're interested, I can send you a link, let me know. But if those who are interested in going deeper, I also have full membership where you'll learn everything that I know over a period of time, or maybe faster. And I am going to drop that link as well for those who are interested. Okay. Here's the link. And then if you're interested, I also have a Google Analytics ebook that's free. Okay, so we covered Explore. Advertising is where you're advertising. I don't have this enabled, but all the advertising features that are there. You have, if you are advertising, you'll get the snapshot. You can compare how users are converting. So you can do different, familiar with attribution models? Okay, we won't touch attribution models. Mm-hmm. Just keep it default for now. And configure is where you can configure a lot of information like your events. You can create events based on pages and convert into and create audience groups. Okay, now I think I covered everything. Anything that does not make sense, I can go back to my PowerPoint, I can come back, but remember this, users and events, people who do activities. The users have properties, events have parameters. You can have 25 user properties, 25 attributes. Now it boils down to, what do I want to know? That's the question you start with. What do I want to know about my users? So that's where you start, and then you start layering in the data that you'll need so that you can collect it correctly. Many people make this mistake where they start collecting, and basic data is fine, you can start collecting today, but they start implementing stuff randomly. And then it becomes a nightmare. You saw my Google Tag Manager. I mean, how many tags are there, right? And these are, I'm testing, so I paused many of those. But this is how many of the production sites look like, and people do not know what that tag is. So, oh, somebody created this 2 years ago. What are we doing with this? You know, so those kind of things, if you have well-documented stuff and saying, why are we tracking this? What do I want to learn? Because with Google Analytics 4, you can have so many attributes, so many properties that you want to be careful on what you're measuring and how you're measuring. And Nick, this is what I was saying about Yard. If this is a simple page on your site, you can just use that page as a sign of somebody on waitlist. In this case, I'm saying it's a lead gen. You can say waitlist. Yeah. GTM, go to market, yes.
I have a query regarding GTM.
You are what? Sorry.
Query regarding GTM.
Okay.
As we discussed earlier, old tracking codes will be obsolete.
Correct.
But in my point of view, you are using Tag Manager. So I
Correct.
think this Tag Manager is already code is updated one. Na? So why?
No.
Okay.
Tag Manager is just a way for you to think about. Tag Manager is a rules engine. You define a rule when to execute certain things. That's it. It does not know what you're executing. It can go blank. You're sending data to old Google. It doesn't know. All it is maybe Google will come back and say, hey, you're using old Google, but that right now it doesn't do that. You have to specifically create. If you create a new tag right here and you create tag configuration, it shows you this is old Google, this is new Google. So you have to pick the one that you want. If you're sending to old Google, the configuration is totally different than when you send it to new thing. And for event tracking, completely different.
Got it. So I need to change the source, tag source that was earlier universal account. That's why I need to update because interface was broken due to the migration. Right. Thank you.
Yeah, and then events are another thing. You in old one you only could track very limited set of things. In events now you have 25 properties, so you have to be careful there.
One more question.
No, Rajan, I'm going to hold you on that question because I'm sensitive that our time is coming along, and I'll excuse the rest of the guests, and then I'll leave the room open for you for a few more minutes if you can stay, Anil.
Yeah, Rajan, you should definitely sign up for my membership. You'll learn a lot, I think.
Thank you. Sure,
yes.
I will.
All right.
Yes.
So, Anil, thank you so much. You always are a wealth of information and so generous with your time. We've appreciated the information that you've shared. As the time went on, I got more and more concrete about what it is that we could actually do to use this. And so I do appreciate that. I'll also be signing up for some of your courses, but I know that people have the opportunity to come back and watch this again. I put in the YouTube channel there, so please feel free to connect. I put in your email, LinkedIn, so that people can follow up. Thank you for your time, everybody. If you're interested in the other events that that Seattle Angel and Mossy Ventures as a whole has, then I put in some chat stuff there. If you don't know how to save your chat, then you just want to click those 3 buttons at the bottom on the right, and that will capture the information for you to retain, including the connections for people. We believe that the network is important, and you've got some great new connections here, so feel free to keep going on that. Do you have any last word of wisdom that you want to share before I turn off the recording?
Well, one, thank you for having me here, and hopefully this was useful. And I know I kind of assumed in the beginning people had used GA, not, and so hopefully things were clear. If not, I'm always happy to help or answer any questions. My LinkedIn is contact information is also there on top if you scroll up there. So yeah, ask me any questions. Let's connect. Let's see how I can help you. So only thing I would say is if you're not using a tool like Google Analytics, and hopefully Google Analytics or Pivot Pro is another tool that I'm very passionate about. It looks very similar. You should start using it today. Just go to google.com/analytics, sign up for Google Analytics. Even if you put the base code, you'll start to get some of the data, so you'll understand what's there and what questions to ask and go from there. But once you start to implement seriously, that's when you will have to think about, okay, what do I want to track now? What do I want to know about my users? What do I want to know about my marketing? What do I want to know about my features? So all those things, the more details you have, the better it'll be for you to track.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everybody.